If you are somebody that holds stocks or crypto and you're feeling comfortable right now, let me help you out of that dream. Here's the Macro Monday 9 initial jobless claims. And it's something rather peculiar. He's basically pointed out in red the recessions and in blue the slight moment before the recession, which every single time shows a great increase. And so to read a little bit of the story, initial claims are new jobless claims filed by US workers seeking unemployment compensation, included in the Unemployment Insurance Weekly Claims Report. Initial claims refers to the government report on the number of workers applying for unemployment benefits for the first time following job loss. First-time jobless claims can be useful, a leading indicator because elevated numbers tend to lead to further economic weakness and to decline ahead of a recovery. Initial claims show a recent layoffs trend and does not a full picture of the labor market. However, it can provide more frequent data points indicating the trend in layoffs based on the recent decisions of US employers. These layoffs trend can be particularly telling at economic turning points. With that in mind, let's take a look at the chart and historic patterns. And like I said, it points to many different recessions since the 70s and the little climb prior to it. And what we're seeing right now, again, is a pretty hefty climb. And because we've only basically had 2 fake outs throughout all time, he basically put up the average amount of time it takes, leading us to believe that roughly around August of 2024 would be the end line. But I'd say average here, as you can see, hopefully you guys can see it perfectly. We should be expecting another massive surge somewhere around November of this year already. But between June and August of next year would basically be the time frame if we look at history. And I just wanted to quickly point this out as, well, if you really pay close attention, sometimes these trends can be so obvious to spot. And I'd say a similar thing applies to Bitcoin's halving chart, which basically showcases how Bitcoin moves over time, as every single time about a third or so into the halving cycle, we hit a new all-time high, and nothing indicates that this will change over the next couple of months. So we are again expecting somewhere middle of 2025 or so to be the new point for an all-time high for Bitcoin. And again, the trend has also held for the last decade or so. Nothing is indicating that this will be broken this time around. And so, like I've stated many times, the general trend for cryptocurrencies is upwards, even though we can see slight downside in the meantime. I must say, I do still believe, though, that even though this is pretty obvious to a lot of the people that pay attention, at the end of the day, they still want you to be confused and for you to not interpret the data like how the major institutions are interpreting it. Why do you think so many decisions are made around the Bitcoin halving? It's because everybody knows. Yet many are in disbelief or don't fully trust the cycle, and they'll end up with no money. Idea here. Analysis says 2024 halving could push Bitcoin to 400,000. BRICS declares the importance of local currencies in trade, week in review. All I like to say about that one is, if you really pay close attention, crypto right now is more important than ever before. And a $400,000 estimate for Bitcoin is not really that crazy. We just saw a new report where people are basically asking ChatGPT, which is not perfect, but hey, where Bitcoin is going to be in 2050. The bot said, or the program said it's going to be at about $500,000 or so. I'd say that's fairly low if we're talking 25 years into the future, especially considering that things are changing so massively. If we're taking a look at the BRICS, for example, the alliance, and how they're changing everything that we've known for the last century with regards to the US dollar's dominance. And that type of stuff always gets me thinking, what is there that we do not know is there? You guys understand what I mean with that? We do not know it's coming up, but it is, right? But nobody fully understands or is able to grasp it just quite yet. Sometimes I get this thought when I'm reading through things that are pretty cool or supposed to expand our ecosystem or help out with the XRP ledger, for example, specifically about XRP, but it applies to anything really. XRP NDN overlay, improving the communication efficiency of consensus validation based blockchains with an NDN overlay, or the corresponding article. Ripple funded research proposes how to speed up the XRP ledger, or Wrath of Kahneman writing it like this, saying a new model to speed up the XRP ledger using named data networking that lowers the number of messages at the node level out of U of Luxembourg, Ubri funded. The authors should be very familiar by now. They're behind PayID, Winning Project, and more. It's a rather difficult document made by some people that have already been working on more things on the XRP ledger. And the basic idea here is that it addresses a critical issue in the scalability of DLT, like the XRP ledger. And the problem can be stated: how can the performance burden due to high number of messages induced by flooding at scale be alleviated? The research note highlighting the challenge of maintaining efficient communication while scaling the network. We've already seen with Ethereum and a lot of other projects and protocols that indeed they're good on a very small scale. Ethereum is amazing, but if you were to extrapolate Ethereum to the entire world, it doesn't function. It bottlenecks, and you might say, oh, the change from proof of work to proof of stake got rid of so many friction points and things. Sure, but still about 99% is left because Ethereum doesn't work at scale. Oh, we've got rollups. Oh, we've got our layer 2s. And yes, things like Base, they might alleviate a lot of the stress by only needing, not that many, I guess, official transactions on the main layer. Most of it just done on a layer 2, but the idea still stands that Ethereum itself pretty much has a top. And of course, they're looking into solving this issue day in, day out, with many promises being made throughout the years. Vitalik looking into it all the time. But really, if we're talking about mass adoption, Ethereum is pretty flawed. And many times I look in the comment section where people ask me, Dusty, why is Ethereum so popular? And I keep saying, it's not because it's made the best. It's because they've got the most adoption already. They were very quick to do something pretty revolutionary, and it caught on. That does not mean there won't be any projects out there that are better. Almost any project out there is better built than Ethereum. They just did not get the adoption that Ethereum has. And since it's so grandfathered in, it's pretty hard to combat that, to cross that level. So a Cardano, or whatever one you want to call it, are they built more robust? Should they actually be higher up than Ethereum? Well, it depends on how you value it. A lot of the value from the network comes on how much activity is on the network, how much is built on top of the network, because that initially is what the whole network is built for, not only just how good technology is. And to revert this back to the XRP ledger, well, there's just a lot that can still be changed on the XRP ledger that's relatively simple to make it even more efficient and better, but the issues are not as apparent just quite yet. It's significantly cheaper, significantly faster and everything than Ethereum and Bitcoin. However, with XRP, as I've stated many times in the past, and like Panos has pointed out on multiple occasions, there's just some things on a base layer that are missing for the XRP ledger that could make it a lot more active or a lot more desirable. I've pointed out on many different occasions that we understand the main principle behind the XP ledger, the main focus of XRP, and it's absolutely huge. We understand many banks could hop on, and now that Grayscale is winning and Ripple won their lawsuit with regards to XRP, things like that where XRP had a fund before, it got taken off because of the SEC's lawsuit, it might come back, which could all be huge for XRP, sure. But things like the DeFi realm on top of the XRP ledger, it's being built. Then again, the XP ledger's main purpose was not the DeFi on top of it, as again, there are good and bad sides to it all. And Panos right now is talking about on-chain liquidity for the XP ledger, and I'm going to say it the way I see it. It has good and bad sides, but it could be the next big thing for the XP ledger in terms of adoption. We know the technology is better. It's actually, fun fact, older as well than Ethereum is. But you might want to ask yourself, is it going to solve the same problem? Is it meant for the same vertical? I'd say no. XRP is a lot more focused on this payments realm, not really necessarily for the DeFi platform acting realm. But then again, if we're talking about the payment realm, DeFi from a certain perspective might actually be a very huge thing for the XP ledger. I mean, the DEX on the XP ledger is, I guess, the oldest DEX out there potentially, and it works like a charm. From that perspective, I'm thinking, yeah, DeFi, if you're talking about XRP itself becoming the most central point of a new financial system, would be crucial. On the opposite end, I'm thinking, well, but it would take away a little bit of the simplicity of XRP that makes it so unique, so quick, so efficient. As again, like we're seeing with Ethereum, the more you build on top, the worse it basically gets for everybody. On the contrary, the better it gets for everybody, because the more you've got, the more you can find out, but also the more you've got, the slower everything gets. So it's always a duality. It's always two-sided. It always needs to be nuanced. And so with this AMM, I think this could be the next big thing for the XP ledger, like I said. And in reality, there are so many ways the XP ledger can still improve. But from a base perspective, the XP Ledger and XRP are already pretty far into the process, and all we're needing is just more and more partners and more people seeing the true utility and building on top of it. But then again, I know I keep putting up these caveats here, most likely there are already so many partners that have just not been announced quite yet, maybe because of the Ripple lawsuit, because I can't fathom that in all these years, the little announcements, which are still a lot, but still little announcements, were it. I believe a lot of it is behind NDAs, and a lot of it is better planned than you might think. That is, again, with accordance to the idea that we all know the cycles, we all know how these things work and flow, and most likely some bigger marketing strategies are based around that, based on the idea that you don't reveal your trump card in a negative time. Algorand, a lot of other projects, they've stopped marketing altogether in this negative time because they know the interest from the newbies is not there. Right now, what we're seeing is an institutional adoption challenge where the ETFs are coming in and we all believe that the price is being manipulated specifically for that purpose. And on that layer, I'm also thinking most likely companies like Ripple, but similarly for a lot of other blockchain projects, they are right now setting those partnerships up, but they'll only start announcing them in about a year from now when the market starts to pick back up hard and when your announcements don't reach 100,000 people, but 1.5 million people, for example, and where a juicy partnership doesn't just keep your price stable or slightly downwards, but actually get your price significantly higher because people are excited more. But again, that's just my theory, the way I've been thinking about it. I for sure could be wrong on every field. I just believe these guys have been planning for too long and have been in the game for too long to let this be it. Again, if you're wondering, the reason I showed you guys this at the start is just to pinpoint ever so slightly that very often things move in a certain motion, and they don't really deviate from it that much. History repeats itself, sometimes not exactly, but as like cousins, so to speak. And trust me when I say that the higher you go along the ranking, the more they know that. And if you are thinking that everything is lit up to chance, it's all luck of the draw, luck of the game, I think you're gravely mistaken. I think a lot more is planned than we might believe, because if we can find out these numbers so easily, there are people working on this every single second of every single day. Guys like BlackRock, for example, have got literally all the money in the world. Don't you think they know this stuff? So don't you think they'd plan accordingly? And similarly on Ripple's field, don't you think that out of all the guys, they'd be in the top 0.0000000 whatever 1% of all the most knowledgeable crypto people out there? So they probably have got a good freaking strategy as well. I just wanted to make that clear to you guys that sometimes we don't know what we don't know. And even though it looks pretty clear to everybody once you start understanding it, even then there's still a layer above where people know better than you. And I sometimes think about that when I don't see an announcement for XRP or the price moves differently to what you expected. Like, for example, the price coming down pretty quickly after the lawsuit concluded. I still think either it's manipulation from Ripple's part because they want the price to move a certain way, or it's just destined for something and it just takes a little bit more time. Because I don't think this is all coincidence. I don't think the price moves like this purely based upon luck and whatever. People are too smart to let this all up to chance. And luckily for us, we know what we hold. It's not up to, oh, can it really do? No, it's like with an ETF. We know it's coming. It's just a matter of time. And with the whole Ripple debacle here, we know again, they are going to be, yet again, victorious over the SEC on some fields soon enough. Is that going to be a certain bullish mark? I personally think so. I think the moment that the appeal gets denied, for example, XRP price will pump. We know, for example, the moment that ETFs come in hot, because of what we've seen yesterday with Grayscale's decision, that most likely the markets will pump hot. Now, should it do that? We do not know. But just off of that theory alone, I think any single price we buy at right now will easily be encompassed or easily be skyrocketed above the moment that some of these decisions come out, and they'll come up pretty shortly. Another thing could be a Coinbase victory over the SEC could pump the markets again. And so even though on the short term markets can go down, I personally don't think that you can ever, at least as at this point, make a loss on your crypto if you buy the right ones. Not financial advice, just my thoughts, because it's all been programmed in from the start, but yeah. Again, if there was not such a big turmoil in the background, that's also basically already been calculated in, I wouldn't be so strong in making my claims, but I personally believe it's all a little bit easier than many people realize, and some big things are changing rather soon, and I'm ready for it. But yeah, that's about it. I keep ranting on for too long sometimes maybe, but I just want you guys all to be successful. That's about it.